Welcome everyone to another episode here at Biz Elements. Today, we're going to be talking about technology. As usual, I have Mohammed here with me, who's going to be co-hosting the episode. Hi, Mohammed.
Hi, Hasnain. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
So as you know, today I'm really excited for the episode because it's all about technology.
I know that technology plays a vital role in business. But would you share with us and our audiences the role of technology in business?
So technology is an integral part, especially in today's day and age. In fact, I would say even 10, 15 years ago. I think it's all started with the advent of email, when people started moving from memos, and you remember those round boxes, cylinders,
Oh my God,
with the
don't I
pneumatic
remember
system. So I would say that with the advent of email, that's when technology took center stage for any business. It started with something as simple as email. Well, actually, it started before that. It started with the web. If you remember, Tim Berners-Lee invented HTML and invented the small, I think it was called ARPANET at that point,
Yep.
for the Department of Defense.
Yep.
And that literally snowballed into what we have today, which is the internet and all the various interconnected systems. So I think today it is vital for any business to make sure that they don't ignore technology for their product or service. And it doesn't matter what industry they're in, even if it's something as mundane as cooking, relatively speaking.
Right.
But it can provide you with efficiency across your processes. It can provide you the competitive advantage, like with Uber. Imagine if technology wasn't a part in Uber's
Right.
business model, it wouldn't have succeeded.
Well, they seem to have embraced technology, right?
Yes.
In a
and
big way.
I mean, their business model doesn't work without technology. It's as
Exactly.
simple as that, right?
Exactly.
And also, it provides you opportunities for growth, like with Microsoft. You remember they were just selling Word, Excel, and then they really started embracing technology, and they became a viable competitor against Amazon's AWS. So I don't think we can ignore technology for any business, be it a startup or a big conglomerate.
Can you discuss the importance of technological goals and needs in this sector?
So I think once you've defined your business goals and you've defined your USP, you've defined the product you're going to offer, the target market, that's when you come in and you start with looking at what is the basic level of technology that you need. Now, any business requires email, it requires an accounting software, it requires CRM to manage its customers, it requires some sort of data storage. So these are the elements, I would say, from a technological perspective. However, your product and or service might require other technology. Maybe you need to develop a bespoke software because you're selling a subscription system, which is unique. So you need to keep track of that. So this is how you set up and look for the goals that in your business.
Right. So is that what you mean by aligning business requirements to technology offerings?
That's right. It all depends on what your service or
Right.
product is. After your basic foundational technology that you need, I haven't even talked about the Wi-Fi you will need, the internet connections.
Right.
But those are now required just like utilities. I mean, you need electricity and water. I would say that even internet is now a utility rather than a nice to have.
So can you give me any examples of businesses that successfully have identified and addressed their technological needs?
One example we already covered, which was Uber. Another example is Airbnb.
Right.
And what they did was they started offering almost timeshares. Now, I'm sure you remember, and I'm not alluding to your age here, Mohammed,
No, of course not.
but you remember how timeshare worked in the days of yore?
Not really, no, but yes, I do.
Okay. So what they've effectively
Right.
done is they have taken that same concept and put it online with the help of technology.
Yeah, turn it upside down, though, right?
And they have turned it upside
Disrupted
down.
the industry, really.
Absolutely, they have.
Wow.
And it wouldn't have been possible without technology.
And you know, the strange thing is, I never thought of it that way. But timeshare is defunct now, really.
Well, it's not.
Well,
It's Airbnb.
No, it's defunct now, the methodology.
Yes.
Because it's been disrupted
Well,
completely by Airbnb.
Yeah, because what ended up happening, if you remember in timeshare, there were so many caveats because everything was tracked manually. And I remember, at least when I was selling it, you had the red tier and the blue tier and the gold tier and
You
the
must go
platinum.
between July and August. 3 weeks, and that's it.
Right. And if you don't use it, you can't carry it forward.
Oh my God.
And then the dates that you want are not available. I remember there were caveats about splitting your 3 weeks. So it just didn't work. And
Right.
with Airbnb, of course, they've modernized some of that. But the key over there, I think, was them using and leveraging technology to do away with all those manual tracking of things. I also remember there was a mate of mine who bought 1 week and was spending 6 weeks every year. Why? Because he found a loophole where they wouldn't check how much his utilization is, and he went anyway. And once he arrived there, what are they going to do? Kick him out?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
So, moving on, can you discuss the key elements of building a technology infrastructure for a business?
So I touched upon this briefly before, but
Right.
as I mentioned, the very basic thing that you need is an internet connection. Now, I am a SaaS person, which stands for software as a service, where I believe that you don't now need any physical servers in your premises. So therefore, all you need is a laptop, a Wi-Fi connection, and maybe some switches to do some routing in case you have hardware like a NAS, which I'm sure you'll tell me more about in a minute. And that's it, because everything else is available online. Your email is available online. Your accounting software is available online. I talked about CRMs, that's available online. I spoke about storage. You've got Dropbox, you've got Box, you've got OneDrive, it's Google Drive, and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
so overall, you've got cloud there, plenty of options.
I believe that with technology, it's literally a laptop and the internet connection. And of course, a Wi-Fi router.
Well, I do have a couple of caveats that I want to talk about. And that is, it does worry me a little bit, the cloud being totally inclusive. And the reason for that is very simple. It's more of a strategy reason than a personal reason, because I feel strongly that in a disaster recovery or in a problematic area, if disaster was to hit the cloud, and that can be any form, it doesn't really matter. I think having something locally, albeit as a backup if need be, or the cloud can be a backup, doesn't matter which way. That has to be determined by the business requirements. But I think having something local is important. And the way to possibly address that is if the data goes to your local first and automatically backs up to the cloud, then you have both copies. My only concern about having exclusive cloud is if you have something like 20 or 30 or 40 terabytes of data, you know, in a situation where you may require all that data to be downloaded and the bandwidth is causing you issues, that can take time. Having lived in Florida, I have seen a few disasters with companies, and it was a few years ago when we had a hurricane, and one of the actual companies went out of business because they lost their data, because they just could not recover.
So this is where I think it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
So let me take an example of a CRM. If you have a CRM online, okay, number one, you have to take manual backups of your data onto the local hard drive.
Correct.
Now, once you download that data, what are you going to do with that data? Because that data is tuned to the CRM that you're using.
Right.
Let's say CRM A from company B. Now, if company B goes bankrupt, okay, yes, you have your data, but it's unusable. And that's why you need something called a business continuity plan.
Correct.
That is very important.
Right.
So, whereby you have either set up some sort of process where it not only downloads the data, but it transforms the data for that company C CRM
Right.
so that you can then upload and, continue your business with minimal downtime.
So now I know some CRM companies actually do offer that as a service, as an add-on. So I think that should be utilized. You're quite right. I mean, the business has to be very knowledgeable and cognizant of that, correct?
Correct. And this does get a little bit technical, and that's what we're here for, Mohammed,
Right.
because, we do help entrepreneurs out if they require some sort of consultancy with regards to technology.
Absolutely.
Having said that, having a clear and concise business continuity plan will not negate the risk of not doing business for a few days, right? You can do that, but for a startup, that becomes very expensive very
Yes.
quickly, where everything is online and live, and literally while you're not running two separate CRMs, you might as well be, because it's literally it shuts down, you move over, and you start with that CRM. However, having said that, you can put up strategies in place to minimize that downtime, where the business may have to close for a couple of days, but you're back after that couple of days.
So can I ask you about high availability? Because that allows a dual scenario of applications, if you like, where if one goes down, the other one takes over
Yes.
seamlessly, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right there. I think having high availability
Right.
can be mitigated on the cloud itself. Right?
Right.
But we are talking about disaster scenarios where the company
right.
goes bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's
The
a different
company is shutting
scenario.
down.
Yeah.
But many cloud providers, they offer you backups automatically.
On a high
number one.
availability basis.
Number two is they
yeah.
give you high availability. In fact, nowadays, they even allow you to choose a data center that's close to your
you.
customers,
Yeah,
not to
yeah.
you, to your
No, to
customers,
yeah.
so that when they log on to your website,
Yeah.
they get it instantly.
Yeah.
So you've hit
brilliant.
it on the head with regards to high availability, but it doesn't cater or cover all the different scenarios.
No, sure.
The other thing sorry, go
Yeah.
on.
No, go on.
So the other thing I wanted to touch upon also was with regards to storage and data, is you need to find a way where you start utilizing that information.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you about data analytics. Yes.
Because it's all well and good that you're collecting how many times
But,
people
yeah,
are coming
if you're
to
not
your
using it,
website.
it's useless.
Yes, how many email
Yeah,
campaigns
yeah,
you've sent.
yeah.
But if you're not using it, what's the point? So again, just taking the CRM as an example, if you do end up sending an email campaign or a social media campaign via the CRM, you not only need to send that out, but you need to start monitoring what the click-through rates are,
Right,
what the
right.
engagement standards
Yep.
are. And then some CRM softwares allow you to analyze that data within the application itself, while others require you to use third-party software to do the analysis. The point is, whichever way you go, you need to make sure that you do take those reports out
Right.
and utilize them so that you can fine-tune your campaign for the next iteration.
Right. So Hasnain, just for our audience, can you pinpoint a company that does that really well at the moment?
Well, so many. Google is one such company. Facebook is another.
Right.
The only way that they've been able to offer such a fine-tuned and unique ad management system is because they used all the demographic data that they have available, all the metadata that comes along with people visiting their respective sites, to now tell you that, oh, if you want to target a 60-year-old person within Florida in the Seminole County of Sanford, you can.
Absolutely.
Wearing a pink shirt.
So, Hasnain, I don't think any episode would be complete if we didn't talk about online presence and e-commerce. Would you elaborate on that for us?
So let's separate out the two, right?
Yeah.
So online presence is different from e-commerce, right? You can't have an e-commerce presence without online presence, but you can have an online presence without e-commerce.
Absolutely.
And let me give you an example. Restaurants. I can choose not to take online orders. I'd be stupid, but I can choose not to, right? But I can have a website having my menu, talking about what my restaurant offers, how these are secret recipes from my grandmother's kitchen, and so on and so forth. E-commerce depends on what your product or service is and whether it's part of your business model. Take the example of the restaurant again. Maybe as a start, he doesn't want to sell online because he requires a whole infrastructure for that.
Right.
He needs to make sure that he's geared up for boxing the food. His food might not be boxable, right?
Right.
Fine dining restaurants. I don't think any Gordon Ramsay restaurant does delivery.
No.
Right.
And even if they did, it wasn't e-commerce.
Correct. But my point is that if your business model supports it, then you have to have an e-commerce presence.
Right.
There are certain businesses and services that you might choose to offer that won't work without an e-commerce business.
Correct, yes.
Case in point, we have already covered like Uber and Airbnb.
Yes.
So it
Absolutely.
all depends on what your product or service is. But I would say in this day and age, I would be hard pressed to find a business that doesn't sell online and doesn't have an e-commerce platform. So there are many e-commerce platforms you can sell, especially if you have products and or services, even digital downloads. So let's say you're a musician and you want to sell your music. You can do it online using Shopify.
Yep.
It's a digital download. It's got
download it, and away you go.
It's got all the membership features. It's got all the paywalls. It makes sure that only you can download the link, so the link expires for the customer after a certain amount of time, so he can't share it with his friends. Unfortunately, you can't do anything with him sharing the physical file with his friends, but that's how it works. Same thing, again, I'm using Shopify as an example, where they can you can sell your own products. So if you're selling toys, you found a great manufacturer, either locally or abroad, and you want to sell rocking horses or the old school wooden toys for children, you can do that with an
e-commerce
website. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to make sure that in order to have a robust e-commerce platform, you have to have an online presence. Right. But you can have an online presence without having an e-commerce platform.
And example of that online presence, Facebook.
Yeah, well, Facebook does e-commerce, right? They sell ads.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? But maybe a better example would be
Etsy.
Etsy is again e-commerce.
It's still an online presence where you're advertising, you're doing things.
So I think online presence only refers to a informational website.
Okay, so like LinkedIn, for instance?
Like LinkedIn. Okay, although LinkedIn does sell.
Yeah, but...
And that's why I said I'll be hard-pressed to find a website that doesn't have
because they monetize it, right? They need to monetize
everything.
Yeah.
But one example does come to mind is your consulting firms. So McKinsey, Bain and Company, they only have an online presence. They don't transact online.
No,
Right? So that's a prime example of where you have an online presence, but not e-commerce.
Right, a business that doesn't need e-commerce.
Correct.
Basically. So with all these things, in this day and age, really, I think we need to share with our audiences the aspect of cybersecurity and data protection. That's so vital now.
I think in this day and age, because of the ubiquity of the cloud platform, data has become far more accessible. Right. It's not like in the days of yore where you had your own server, all your data was sitting either on a NAS or a QNAP or what have you, and it's of course being replicated and backed up on tape drives, but it wasn't accessible easily. I mean, most of the time you needed physical access to the server to get at the data. But now with the cloud, everything is online, and therefore companies have had to take the additional step of securing that against malicious actors, hackers, effectively.
Yeah.
So if you go with a established company for your software needs, for your CRM, for your accounting software, for your storage requirements, they provide that to you, and it's built into the subscriptions, right? However, having said that, it is always a good idea to look up their reputation on data, because there are still a handful of companies out there that will sell your data to advertisers.
Wow.
Yep, they still do that, yeah.
Customer beware.
Correct, but like I said, there are a handful of companies now because there's so much done and so much progress been made in privacy laws. As you know, from UK that started the whole GDPR initiative.
Correct.
I know United States is not part of that, but United States also have upped their privacy laws.
Right, yeah.
So I think with regards to data protection, you just need to make sure that you go with a reputable company.
Absolutely.
And then also you got to make sure that, you remember I told you that you just need an internet connection and a laptop and routers?
Yep.
Well, you also need a good firewall, because you don't want people coming in from the internet and going into your laptops and installing something called a keylogger. I'm not trying to scaremonger.
So no, it's not about scaremongering. It's actually happened to some of my clients.
It has happened. So you just need to make sure you have, again, a standard firewall. Don't go for just any old brand. Buy a reputed brand firewall. Yes, it will cost you, but this is something that you need to budget for within your funds.
Well, your data is much more worth it than the amount you'll pay for protection, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's been wonderful talking about technology. Just to make sure that our audiences actually get the gist, can you conclude for us?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's very important to define your base technology that you need, emails, accounting, CRM, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, based on the product or service you're selling and your USP, identify where technology is required so that you can actually deliver that value that you've promised to the customer. I think also one of the key things that you need to look at is, once you're collecting all this data, you need to start making use of it so that you can fine-tune your product and service to better serve the customer needs. I also think that it's important that if you do have a business model that requires an e-commerce site, again, make sure that it's delivering the value that you've promised to the customer. And there are many platforms you can leverage off that. And this goes for either a service that you might be offering or a product. And then finally, with regards to securing that data, make sure that any software that you procure from these vendors, they have all the privacy laws and data protection compliance in place.
Brilliant.
So, Mohammed, thank you again for another wonderful episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Mohammed. And viewers, thank you again for joining us for another episode here at Biz Elements. Don't forget to subscribe and see you on the next one. Bye.
Goodbye.